Hello. Let's see. We're about to get this started. So, we're good. As always, if you've never been to one of my live streams, we got to wait a little bit for people to join up because it always takes a little bit of time. And then we'll get going with it. But in the meantime, comment and let me know you're in here. Let me know you can hear me okay. That kind of stuff. Because once in a while I have screwed up a live stream. All right, everybody. Comment if you can. Is that, hopefully I say it right, Kaiser Painting from Pittsburgh. Welcome. And I take it everybody can hear me. Good. Good to hear. I've got a lot to talk about today, and I'll start getting into that here fairly soon. But I like to always let people come in a little bit more, and I'm kind of behind. I've been running around doing doctor's appointments today and stuff like that. So I didn't quite get as prepared as I wanted to. All right, cool. Welcome, Georgia. We got Nebraska, Pittsburgh. Cool. Let's see. Let me adjust this camera a little bit. So, just to get things started here, I'll tell you what's been going on here in my life, my family. Some of you probably know that last winter we rode out the winter in Quartzsite, Arizona in our RV. And we did that because we've been having to rent a long time. And me, myself, I'm in Colorado. I'm actually 25 miles from Utah in a little town called Grand Junction. So it's one of the warmer areas of Colorado, but it's still, we've already had snow twice. We've seen low temperatures of 16 degrees already, although today was warmer. And we are riding out the winter in our RV, so it's going to be a rough one for Colorado, but I think we're prepared. I've skirted it. I've got a little Vivor diesel heater. It's really cool. It puts out a lot of heat. I run that under the RV, under the skirting, and that's going to help keep the pipes from freezing. But it's going to be a cold one because RVs are leaky. Last year was a lot nicer in Arizona in the desert. Okay, I get questions all the time, so I'm going to do a quick rundown on my health. A lot of you probably know I've had a lot of crazy health problems. I used to think I was bulletproof, but I found out I wasn't. The short rundown is I'm probably going to be trying to file for a VA disability because I got so many things going on. I can barely work. It's a challenge here to do what I'm doing because I have this terrible brain fog still. I've had it ever since I got COVID. I actually had it before that when I got a virus in this ear that destroyed 40% of the nerves in there. It gave me permanent vertigo. My brain adapted, but that keeps my brain working overtime trying to ignore the faulty side. So I have a lot of fatigue, and then I went and got COVID and thought I'd bounce right back from that, and I've had the terrible brain fog and fatigue ever since. I've tried all kinds of things, so I appreciate your suggestions, but it's a good chance I've tried it and I'm still trying things. I just got back from the VA today. They're working on me on physical therapy because my shoulder is shot from 40 years of this drywall stuff. I can't sleep at night. It wakes me up in the middle of the night after I'm in bed for 4 or 5 hours. That's about the most I can do. You probably saw I was in the ER recently because I have severe restless legs. So I got all this stuff going on. I'll probably do something else about it separately, but what we're going to talk about today, I'm getting by the best I can. Let's just put it this way. I'm working about 10, 12 hours a day between sitting and messing with my phone, answering comments, planning things, and working. And I figure I get out of that 10 or 12 hours, I get about 4 hours of work done because half the time I'm just fighting it so much. I screw up things on my computer all the time because I can't concentrate. But I'm on this new medication called Provigil. It's for people with severe apnea, um, narcolepsy, shift workers who can't adapt, things like that. So they're trying it on me. Let's see. Yeah, and mine is terrible. I have tried so much. I used to be really sharp, and now I just can't hardly concentrate, but I'm getting it done. So what we're going to talk about is things like my new book is out, and this is just a book to help you understand tools and materials. It's now out in printed form. You can see that. This is a paperback from Amazon. It's only like $11 something, and it's got really good quality. Let me see if I can show you some of the pictures, if I can get the lighting right. The pictures came out really good, honestly. The print quality is really good on these, and it's got, cool labels on it for everything. Breaks it down into all the different tools. There's a QR code in there. If you want to pick up any of the tools, you just scan that QR code with your phone. It'll take you to a page where I list a lot of them. And also, if you want to come to my YouTube channel, you can come that way also. Welcome from Nigeria. Cool. Love to see international people pop in here. Yeah. This is, I know some people doubt me and they think it's this and that. And I hear the thing about it's the jab. I had this fatigue before I ever got a vaccine because I got it in March of 2020 when it was brand new. I just had to go try it out because it was something new. But anyway, that book is available on Amazon. It's also on there as an ebook for even less. And I'm really happy with the way that came out. Let's see. We are working real hard to get out of our situation here because we've been renting for like 9 or 10 years. We're looking at some property. Hopefully we can get things together, but this last year has slammed us. After I got hacked, my channel has never recovered. We are making a decent amount, but we're making about the same amount we were about 15 months ago. So the hackers really took me down. And when the channel came back, they had to actually delete the channel. And when it did come back, it came back weaker and it's never really recovered. I found that I've got 285,000 subscribers or something. I don't think 1,500 of you or a couple thousand of you ever see my videos because the algorithm is screwed up in my mind. You hear that all the time, but I don't even like the way it serves me videos. And by that, I mean, if I go watch a video, let's say about mud bogging, if I watch 2 or 3 videos, the next thing I know, that's all I see is just mud bogging videos. I don't even see the stuff I used to see. I got to go search for it again. So I figure that's happening to a lot of you guys. If you don't watch my videos regularly, YouTube will just quit showing them to you and you don't even realize I'm putting them out and you miss a lot of them. So that's the title of the book. Someone's asking. It's just called Drywall Tools and Materials and Search for Book. It's brand new, so they tend to shove brand new stuff down. I had to pay for a sponsor ad video or an ad just to get it to show higher. But it's on there. We don't make like $4 a book, but it'll help you guys out and it helps us out a little bit. I also have a spiral version of that coming out. I'll be printing that hopefully pretty soon. It's going to be a lot more because it costs a lot more to print a spiral book. It's almost $10 a book to print one. And then it's like something like $7 a book to ship it. It's cheaper if you can deal with the paperback. You just can't lay it flat. It's got great quality, works good. Let's see, let me trying to keep up with this on my own. And we also have some other ebooks in the store there. So anyway, we're trying hard to get out of this commercial building we're renting, partly because we've got new owners and they took away two of our covered parking spaces, and they're just being really difficult. And then this morning I showed up and a homeless person had taken a dump right by my doorstep, and I got it on me. So they knocked over my trash can. I didn't realize what happened. I picked up the trash. They'd used the trash to wipe. I got it on my hands. It was really disgusting. I got him on video. I'm filing it with the police. Got a clear picture of it, but we got to get out of here. Okay, so back to here. And okay. Yeah, the Drywall Academy is big news. I've been working hard on it. It's actually been really complicated to figure out because there's so much we can do with that, but I'm starting to get it nailed down. So I'm going to explain to you how that works, what you can buy, the memberships, kind of how that all works. And I'll show you some of the courses that I've got created and some of the ones coming up, as well as, if you stick around, I'm going to give you some discount codes. It's only going to be for a few of you because one of them is $300 off, one's $100 off, and so on. Let's see. So the way it works basically is the Drywall Academy is set up so that when you come in, there's various locations you can land when you come in. So once you get signed up, you get a dashboard. And from that, you get access to courses that you can purchase individually. And there's going to be all kinds of them. I'll explain that in a minute. And you can join as just a membership. If you join as a membership, it costs more than a course, but that's because you're going to get access to more than one course. I can go in and decide what you get. So I'll give you access to some of these courses, and over time, you'll keep getting access to more and more courses. Things like videos I put out on there just for their articles, live streams with me. We'll do community meetings where you can come in there with a camera. We all have a camera, like a Zoom. It's kind of like that. So I can actually see you, hear you. We can talk to each other through these meetings, which is something we can't do on YouTube. If you've got a mobile camera or mobile camera, and you're doing that meeting that way, you can actually walk over and show me something if you want. Can't guarantee how good I'll be able to see it, but you can. You're going to have a lot more access to me as a member of the community. You can reach me more directly. I'm going to give priority to, of course, people who are part of the Drywall Academy, because that's where I can teach the best. And the reason I say that is when you guys come to YouTube to learn something, there's two ways you're going to learn. Basically, you're going to come there to solve one problem, like which drywall mud do I use with paper tape? You come there, you solve it, you go back to what you're doing. And then there's a lot of you who want to continue to learn more and more about what you're doing, especially those of you in the trades. If you're in the trades, comment below what your trade is. I know a lot of you guys are plumbers, electricians, and so on. And a lot of times you got to punch a hole in the wall. You got to fix some damage, and you don't want to have to bring in a drywaller to fix one little thing, but you also don't want to do a crappy job. And you don't want it to take forever if you do get it done right. So that's what this course is going to do, is it's going to give you a lot more logical order of teaching, because a lot of you try and it's like you're trying to learn how to skydive by jumping out of the plane and then putting a parachute on as you go down and say, now what do I do next? Literally, it's kind of how it works. You come into a YouTube video, you get right in the middle of what you should know. If I was going to train you on the job, I would not start you out with how to fix a hole in the wall. I'd start you out with understanding the materials we're using, the terminology, how to mix up the mud properly for those that are working, so on. So you end up kind of getting your training in bits and pieces and all out of order. It's also kind of like taking a puzzle, and saying, if you can put this together, you're going to be a skilled drywall repair guy, but there's 1,000 pieces. and you don't know what to do, I'm going to walk you through and say, start with piece number one. And that's kind of how this course is going to go. And I'm going to show you that outline here in just a minute. So there's also going to be that community section. And I got to pay for these levels right now. The next level is $200 a month. So I don't have that. So we have one community. That's where you guys can come in there and chat amongst yourself and ask me questions in there. And I think you can post pictures in there a lot more than you can do on the YouTube comments. Just going to give you a lot more ways to learn, interact with each other, help each other, and just share your stories about what you're doing. As we get this thing built and I can afford to upgrade, I'll create more communities that are more specialized, and probably create a community like for the higher levels of membership where you have more direct access to me. So some of you, let's see, you're going to get these meeting, I don't really know what to call them, meeting events where they're video to video. And at the lower levels, you get like one a month, and it'll be a kind of a group thing. At the higher levels, you may get two a month. At some levels, you can just request one, because I have a platinum level, and that is a lifetime level where you basically get access to everything I ever do on this channel or on this Drywall Academy, and you get more direct access to me. We can do phone calls, we can do video calls, whatever, to help you out. Let's see, download. By the way, if you haven't done it yet, if you haven't downloaded my free tools book, that book is available for free, but it's a condensed, stripped down version. But it's got a lot of good information in it, and you can get that at that link I'm putting in the comments right now. Yeah, drywalltoolsbook.info. And that also gets you signed up with an email on the Academy, so I have a way to reach you. Okay, so let me go over, okay, there's going to be 3 membership levels. There's a free level, but I'll just talk about the paid levels. There's a bronze level, a silver level, and a gold level. And I'm putting links to all this in the description down below, so you can click on the memberships or the courses, whatever you want to go check out. The memberships, again, you've got payment plans. I got a number of ways you can do this. You can do a yearly, which is going to save you more like normal. You can do sometime a 6-month or a 4-month payment. That'll cost you a little bit more in the long run, or you can do a monthly sometime, depends on the plan. And of course, that one's going to cost you a little bit more, but you can check them out. And each one of them, I'll just be dripping information, courses, lessons to you according to the level. Now, the basic level is bronze. That level is basically for those of you who dabble in this, meaning maybe you're a homeowner and you just like to fix things up around your house, nothing major, or you might be a contractor and you just occasionally need to fix some minor stuff. That's a pretty good course for you. The silver level, that's more like for those of you that want to know a little more. Maybe you're tackling a little remodel on your house, so you need to know a little bit more about it. Or you're in the trades and you have to fix something that's a little bit more extensive. So that's a good one. There'll be some basic texturing skills in some of those. It gets more and more advanced as we go. The gold level of the How to Master the Art of Drywall Mudding course. Now that's a course at that gold level 3. You basically get the whole course, and that's going to walk you through everything about drywall, all the way through business building, texture matching, and so on. And again, I'm going to try and show you some of that, but you guys can go check it out, and because there's a lot to cover here. Oh, let's see, links, discount codes. All right, let me see if I can make this come up on screen here. I've got an outline of kind of everything I put into this, but Always have to remember how to do it. Present. Share screen. Okay, let's see. Yeah, we'll add that. And let me clear this screen here. Time to go mudding. There we go. Got to clear this one too. It's hard to do this all by yourself, but I just don't have anyone to help me and can't afford anybody. There we go. Okay, this is a PDF file I put together that just is going to show you the outline of the courses. And that is the course Mastering the Art of Drywall Mudding and Business Building, depending on the level you're at. And I did include some of the testimonials on here. They're in a few different places. I love hearing this kind of stuff, not to pump my ego up, but it lets me know that I'm doing some good, that I'm actually helping a lot of you learn how to do this without so much of the struggle. I hear that a lot of you are spending way too much time working the mud too much and ending up with a bumpy surface that you got to sand down and so on. And that's what I'm here to teach you. So let's see. We start out with things like how to get the most out of these courses. And that's basically take your time and the importance of practice. If you guys are really wanting to learn this, you really need to practice depending on what you're doing. The simple stuff doesn't take so much, but that's an important thing. I cover things like safety concerns, advanced drywall mudding basics. So I go over subjects like, do you want to use a pan and a knife or a hawk and a trowel? That's a common one. And honestly, that really depends on your preference. You just got to decide what fits you, but I do give you a recommendation. I'll make this a little bigger. There, make it a little bit easier to see. For most of you, I would tell you that a pan and a knife, because a hawk and a trowel is kind of an advanced set of tools and it's harder to use until you get kind of skilled at it. So anyway, I'm not going to cover every single subject on here, but we talk about whether or not you should use box mud or bucket mud, how to choose the right mud for taping, for repairs and new construction, for topping and coating. And it's just not as simple like this, the right joint compound for topping and coating. There's actually one joint compound that I recommend beginners don't use, and most people don't need to. I never use it. And it's one that you cannot put on metal corner bead, and that is topping mud. Topping mud says on it, not for the first coat on corner bead. I also tell you about hot mud because, like, for example, on corner bead tends to be kind of deep if it's the old school metal style. If not, it's a little different. But if it's deep, you need to use fast setting joint compound, and I explain why. I also am going to tell you how to mix up the mud at the right thickness, how much to mix it, things like that, what tools to use, how to get by with cheaper tools if you need to. You don't always need the expensive tools. Let's see. I talk about all the advantages and disadvantages to hot mud. I'm going to go over all the levels of finish in this course. We're going to talk about everything from level 1 to level 5, and I'm going to show you why there's kind of more than one level 5. And that has to do with understanding lighting, and I got that on here somewhere. But anyway, you need to understand the goal of mudding when we're mudding drywall. And by that, I mean, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get it dead flat? Are you trying to put a little bit of a hump? How wide do you need to go? What are we really trying to accomplish here? And we're going to understand lighting, and shadows in that course. Some of these are lessons. So the ones you see, like advanced drywall mudding, that's actually a chapter. And then under it is a lesson. And the course is how to master the art of drywall mudding. So it kind of breaks down that way. At the top is the course that covers everything. Then there's chapters and there's lessons under it. It'll help you when you're going through this. I'm going to show you how. This is a big one. Oops. I didn't think about that's a clickable one. Okay, there we go. I'm going to talk about how to apply joint compound for a smooth finish with minimal sanding, because I know that plagues a lot of you. And by that, it means a lot of you, again, like I mentioned earlier, you put the mud on, you tend to overwork it, you can't seem to stop, and you don't know when to stop working it. I'm going to show you how to put it on with as few knife passes as possible. If you watch me do it, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen this, I can put it on generally in one pass, feather both edges, wipe it, and I'm done. Now, you guys might not get that good real fast, but I'm going to show you how to do that in these courses, and what I'm going to try and explain what I think you're doing wrong. And that's something we often can't do in the YouTube videos. You guys want these 10 to 15 minute videos, and we can only fit so much in there. So you kind of get a lot of stuff left out. Oh, let's see. And by the way, if you want to give a super chat, it'll make me notice your comment more, and we just appreciate the support. Which I'm going to look over the comments every now and then. Let's see. Yeah, you know, as long as I've done this, and in doing so many years of repairs, like 20 years and nothing but repairs, I've just seen so many attempts by you guys trying to do it. And I get that you want to do it, but a lot of times you haven't had the right training. And boy, if you mess it up, it can be a lot of work to fix it. I know, because I've had to fix a number of them. And thank you, Leonardo. So anyway, some more of what we're going to cover is how thick can you put drywall mud on? That's often a big question, and I think some of you get that wrong too. There is a limit, especially to regular joint compound. Some important guidelines. We're going to go into how to tape new drywall. Now, again, notice this is what's included in the gold level advanced course. Some of this you guys will get little bits of it. The gold level is going to get everything. So like taping new drywall, I'm not quite sure what levels are going to get that, but I may give you a real simple version in a silver level and the more thorough version in the gold level. What materials to use when taping, the importance of prep work and pre-filling before taping. And by prep work, there's quite a bit to that. Cutting out loose drywall, scraping off any lumps, driving in any screws and nails, even things like making sure it's a safe workplace. You're not going to trip and fall and get hurt, because sometimes there's too many extension cords and too many things to trip over. But what order to tape new drywall? I hear this question fairly often. What order do you tape your recess joints, butt joints, internal angles, corner bead, so on? Taping recess joints by hand, taping butt joints by hand. So most of these courses right through here are going to be talking about doing it by hand, because even if you're doing this much, if you're starting out, you need to learn how to do it by hand. Taping the internals or the inside angles by hand. Taping drywall repairs. We'll talk about that. Then I'll get into taping with a banjo. So if you're going to do like a remodel, you're going to do very much at all, this is a good first step for taping, is a banjo. It's much cheaper than a bazooka and all that. And honestly, if you haven't been taping and finishing drywall for at least a year, you probably don't need a full set of automatic taping tools. They're going to be too advanced for you. And it's kind of like jumping into a NASCAR race and jumping into a full-blown NASCAR when you've never even raced a go-kart. You got to start small. Chapter 4, how to coat and finish all drywall properly. So we'll talk about coating recessed joints and all the steps and how to know when it's done. Coating butt joints, coating the internal angles. We're going to be talking about coating off angles, and that's kind of like when you got a 45 or something like that. And that, yeah, that's, I'm talking about the inside one. So like at a vaulted or cathedral ceiling, right at the peak, often you have an angle that's not quite a 90. We'll talk about how to coat those. There's a couple different ways I do that. How to patch around electrical boxes, how to get a level 5 finish. We're going to go through all the steps that you need to do that. And there's a number of different ways to get to a level 5. So we'll talk about that. This is where I talk about the variations of level 5. I'm going to go over the importance of touch-up, because if you guys don't understand touch-up, you're not going to get a high-quality job. It's really the final step, and it's an important one. Drywall sanding is also important. I'm going to try and show you how to sand as little as possible, but when you do, I'm going to try and show you how to, sand it right. A lot of you tend to over sand your drywall, and you end up back down to the paper, and you keep putting more on and sanding it off and going back and forth. So I'm going to show you the best I can how to identify when you should stop sanding and either put a new coat on or move on. I'll also talk about all kinds of the different sanding tools, from the Black Widow sanders to the rectangular to the radius to the power sanders, vacuum sanders. I'm going to show you a vacuum sander setup that will save you a lot of dust when you're sanding. And I'm going to go back to the comments for a minute, see if anybody has any comments or any questions. Yes, actually, I'm getting to that. It is going to cover that. If you're in the gold level, then we're going to get into some business stuff. So let's move on down. We're going to talk about, let's see, what will texture and paint hide? It's another area I see a lot of you that think that texture just hides anything. And actually, a lot of texture will telegraph your defects right back through. It'll look good while it's wet, but it shrinks. Mud shrinks like 30 to 40%. And if you put it on nice and flat, but you got a ridge underneath, when it shrinks, suddenly that ridge starts telegraphing back through the surface. So I'm going to explain what texture and paint will hide. And paint hides very little. That's another one that looks like it's hiding great, but when it dries, you may find out it's not. We're going to go over understanding the importance of lighting on drywall, because it's really important that you understand lighting. Let's see, I probably won't get real into it here, but let's just say that the more light shines down a surface, like let's say you've got a ceiling with a ceiling lamp and that light's going right down it, it's going to make everything pop a lot more. If it's more oblique and it's shining more towards, like say you got a lamp right here and it's shining at your wall, that wall's going to hide things a lot better. Now I'll explain that more in that section of the course. Lighting is really important. You got to use it when you're touching up. You got to use it to understand level 5, and you should pay attention to it if you're finishing new drywall, because sometimes you don't need to finish everything to the same level. Lighting can, like let's say in a closet, everything may disappear and they're pretty good. You can get by with a little bit less touch up, a little bit more of a crude finish, but it's pretty minor. But where it really matters is like if you got a sconce on a wall. I did a level 5 once where they had a sconce on a wall, 2 of them shining down, and it made everything stand out terrible. We had to put extra work into it, and now we've got these skim coating blades I wish we'd had back then. I'm going to show you how a skim coating blade can solve all kinds of problems. I used to think they were a joke, but now I love them. We're going to talk about things like why drying temperature and time and temperature are important. The humidity, everything can screw up a job. I've seen it happen. Oh, let's see. We'll skip a little bit. I'll go over all about corner bead, how to install it, which ones I think are best, some of the different types, where you might want to use them, etc. General tips and tricks, specialty tools. So in the main sections, I just cover your common tools, but there are some really unique specialty drywall mudding tools that you might want to know about, especially if you're a pro. Sometimes these tools can really come in handy, but a lot of you don't need them, but you might want to look this section over. Now, here's one I think that'll help a lot of you, and this is going to be a standalone course too, is I've got a course I'm going to call Drywall Texture Masterclass. And in that course, we're going to tell you how to identify drywall textures. I'm going to list as many drywall textures as I know about, and I'm going to tell you the names that I know about, because drywallers all across the country have different terms for different textures, and it can get confusing. So all I can do is tell you the names I know about, and I'll see if I can find any others and list them, so that if you're talking to your drywaller or your customer, whatever, and you call it a skip trowel, but it's really a stomp brush texture, you're really going to confuse people. So I'll have a lot of pictures on that. And that'll cover the common spray textures, the common hand textures, and brush textures, from swirl textures to stomp brush and so on. Getting dry mouth here. Then we're going to go into how to apply orange peel and splatter textures, knockdown textures, and this is going to be a little more in depth than my videos on my YouTube channel. How to apply most of the common hand textures, how to apply brush textures. Now you might wonder, why do I know how to do so many of those? Do I really know how? Well, if you get into doing nothing but drywall repairs, and you're in an area like we are, where there's a lot of different textures, very little smooth finish here, but there is, you have to learn how to match these textures if you're going to do a repair. And if you can't match it, you could have a big problem on your hand, because you either got to skim coat the whole wall and redo the texture, or do a lousy texture match, which I really don't recommend. If you can't match a texture, don't leave a customer like that. I'll tell you a story. There was one time I couldn't get a texture to blend, and I tried twice. I went in, it was a vaulted ceiling with a stomp brush texture, and I could get the pattern to match pretty much perfectly on the second try, but I couldn't get it to blend. And there's a reason for that. Most of the time when it was a flatter ceiling, it blended just fine, but the lighting there was really harsh. Every morning the sun would come in and shine right up that ceiling, and it highlighted like a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of where I did the texture. And the short answer is, it's basically because a brush texture has patterns. It's brushes, so it stomps on there and leaves these patterns. When you do a repair, you cut them all off. You're going around and doing this big repair, and you're cutting all those patterns off, and you can't get those to the new ones to lay right back over the old ones, so they're different, and it gives it away. The hardest one in the world to blend to me is a stomp brush texture. If any of you guys have tried that and you know a better way, or you got it done better, or you know the difficulty, comment down below. Hey, cool. And thank you. I appreciate that. Got to get that book going on there. So anyway, we're going to cover that. And then that, like right here, it says how to match the textures and blend. It's about more than matching the texture. You have to understand how to get it to blend. And I figured out some tips and tricks that have worked pretty well. And it has taken years. I think it took me at least 5 or 6 years of doing nothing but repairs to get decent at blending repairs because it's tricky to get them to not show when you're done. So how to match all these different ones. And I'm even going to go into the trick to matching and blending a rolled on texture. The first time I tried one of them, it didn't want to blend and look right, but I figured it out. Then we're going to do a section on how to do some of the most common drywall repairs, the simpler ones. And then we will do advanced drywall repairs for those of you in the trades and those that want to take it further. And I'll try and go over some of the problems that often arise when you're doing repairs and what you can do about it. We'll go into bidding, how to bid drywall repair jobs and how to bid small new drywall jobs. And I say small meaning like a house, and maybe a small house. I honestly never did much bidding of new house construction. My dad did. He did a lot of stuff, and I usually just did the work back then. Then when I got into patch and repair, I just didn't have a need to bid new. So I'm going to show you what I know about bidding a smaller new drywall job. And I can give you some good tips and tricks on it, but we also are going to be putting out a course about bidding $1 million projects. I have a friend who has probably done well over $1 billion in drywall work, his company, and now he does nothing but estimating. He sold his business, got out of it. He's done things like colleges and motels. We got a college here called Mesa State, changes names every now and then. And he's done most all the new dormitories and buildings his company did. So they were pretty big company. So he said he's got it down to an art. Him and I are going to get together and do a class on bidding larger construction jobs. I got some bronchitis going on right now, I think, because I aspirated some food and drink the other day. Let's see. I mean, it's again because of the brush pattern. When I do the course, I can show you better, but again, you've got all these random brush patterns, and then when you make a rectangular repair, you cut them all off. And if your new ones all start blending from your repair over, it'll give it away. Now, if you look at it with a light going more straight at it, it'll blend in. Again, it's under critical lighting. I've done quite a few stomp brush repairs, and I've only had one that fought me. And I told the guy I wouldn't charge him. I charged him for the repair, but I wouldn't charge him for the texture because I didn't get it done right. And the previous guy he hired had the same problem, only his repair wasn't so great either. So my repair came out great. The pattern looked great. It just wouldn't blend for nothing because of the way the patterns overlap, and it just will give it away. It's hard to explain. I think I can explain it better when I actually go out and do an example in a studio. Okay, so yeah, I'll go over the best of my tips and tricks for how I bid a drywall repair job. A lot of you ask all the time, how much should I charge? I see this posted in Facebook groups all the time. Hey guys, how much should I charge? And here's where that doesn't pay to ask, really, in my view. And I'm going to try and teach you how to break this down better. If you're in California, you're going to charge a lot more than me. If you're in New York, you're going to charge a lot more than me. I'm in the Midwest. Our prices are kind of middle ground, I think. There's places where it's cheaper, but I know there's places where it's a lot more expensive. So what I tell you I would charge is irrelevant if you're not in the same area. Also, I'm going to teach you how you got to value your pricing based upon your skill level. If the better you are, the more you can charge. In the end, when I quit, I was making $120, $150 an hour fairly often, sometimes more, because I could go in and do the job really quick and do it better than most anybody. And I left the job clean, treated the customer with integrity. Like by that, I kind of mean too many contractors promise they're going to show up at a certain time and then blow the customer off, and you will burn your business to the ground doing that kind of stuff, which we're going to cover in some of these other lessons here. So I'm going to talk about how to build a drywall business and gain referrals and repeat customers. And I've come up with a lot of really good ideas. And I used to have 5-star ratings on Google, mostly 5-star on Angie's List and Facebook. The only ones that were negative were generally, like, I had a negative that said I missed a bid, so he gave me a 1-star. I missed one bid in like years, and I missed it, but he gave me a 1-star because he didn't give me a chance to go back and fix it. That'll happen. There is a way to get those ratings. You have to ask for it, and you have to ask for it in a certain way. So I'm going to give you just a quick clue of what we used to do. We had a routine with my wife and I. She handled the phone calls and that, and I told her day before I'm supposed to go bid a job, send the customer an email or a text, and it basically says, "Hey, thanks, Susie. We just wanted to confirm that we're still on for that bid tomorrow at 2 p.m. at such and such address. If there's going to be any change, be sure and let us know." You're staying in contact with the customer all the time. They appreciate that. They text back and go, "Yep, we're on," or, "Oh, I forgot about that. I'm out of town." And that happens. I used to show up on jobs to bid them and nobody would be there, and it really wastes a lot of your time. So that cut that down. Then after the job was done, we would contact them a week later and say something to the effect of, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we just wanted to say thanks again for letting us take care of the drywall repairs you needed done, and let us know if there's any questions you have." You generally don't want to address it as problems because you make them think there must be a problem. There's a proper way to structure what you say, but you say, "Let us know about any questions you might have." And then we would go on to ask for referrals. Like, if everything came out great, in this business, we rely a lot on referrals and repeat customers. So if you have any neighbors or customers or friends that need work like this, be sure and send them our way. Then you follow up like a month later, and then 6 months later, and then a year, and you just keep in contact with them. And every time you do, they're liable to go, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell Joe about you. He's doing something." We got a lot of work that way. So it all helps. Let's see. Yeah, I'll talk about things like how to start a drywall repair business, how to start a drywall contractor business, mistakes that can ruin your drywall business. And I kind of mentioned one of those, and that is not being a person of your word, integrity. So my policy was, if I say I'm going to be there at 2 o'clock to look at your job, if I'm going to be more than 15 minutes late, and all right, if I think they're coming to meet me at the job, I'm going to tell them if I'm going to be 5 minutes late. But if they say, "Oh, I'm home all day," if I think I'm going to be more than 15 or 20 minutes late, I text them and say, "Hey, I'm running behind. Just wanted to make sure that's not a problem, but I'll be on my way." They really appreciate that. I've had so many people tell me, "Yeah, so-and-so, I tried to hire them. They wouldn't even show up. So I'd rather use you," and they'll pay more, and you'll just get more repeat business that way. There's a number of things you can do that will pretty much ruin your business. I'll teach you a lot of that. How to streamline your business. I see a lot of people in the trades that don't really think about streamlining enough. And by that, I mean, you want to get your work done as efficiently, as quickly, and as high a quality as you can. And if you don't have things set up to let you do that in a streamlined manner quickly, you're going to waste money. You're going to take longer to do it. Now, I learned a lot of this from my father, although I've taken it and expanded it and put a lot more to it. My dad was one of the fastest drywallers I knew ever. I've never figured out how he and my uncle went so fast, but it mostly came down to streamlining and efficiency. And I'll try and teach you a lot of that. How to control inventory and tools. Now, why did I put this in here in a larger business? Because I worked, the first company that hired me as a drywall repair guy, I watched him go out of business, and he had like 40 or 50 people working for him. At one point, he sent me out on a job that was about a $7 million, 28,000 square foot mansion on Lake Washington in Bellevue, Washington. And so he had some pretty big jobs, but it wasn't like 6 months later, I was friends with one of his department managers. He oversaw, I think, the new construction or something. He told me, yeah, the guy's going out of business. Well, one day when I showed up on this to pick up some materials or something from his shop, his helper comes up and he's like, I kind of knew him. So he goes, hey, man, my boss has got me going out to like the last 10 jobs we did looking for scaffolding and ladders because we're missing most of it. We don't know where it went. That's inventory control. When I left, they fired me at one point because they were trying to. That's the only time I've ever been fired in my life, and it was bogus. But they were actually, I figured out later, they were just trying to cut employees and trying to avoid workman's comp and stuff, or unemployment, things like that. But anyway, they fired me because I was on a job on a motel where they replaced all the air conditioners, and we were patching around where the new air conditioners were going to go. And on my lunch break, my policy was I would work until I got done with something, then take lunch. So I took lunch at like 12:20 or something like that. And they had all the beds stood up so that we wouldn't get them dirty. So I went over and sat down and leaned up against the bed, ate my lunch, and then I just was sitting there by myself. So I just was chilling. And apparently somebody walked in and saw me, and he didn't say a thing because I wasn't sleeping, but he turned me in for sleeping. So the guy fired me. I just was like, fine. I left. When I got home, I realized, oh, wait a minute. I still have your hand masker and something else, which is worth like $80 or $90 all total. You didn't ask me about it. You didn't give me a chance to defend myself, so I didn't tell him. So he was going under because he didn't understand inventory control. How to stay ahead of the competition. It's really important no matter how good you're doing. I've studied business all my life. I'm one who studies and learns all the time. And one of the things that kills a lot of businesses is they can grow too fast, which almost happened to me in another business, or they think they're doing really well and they just become complacent and they don't worry about their advertising, their truck signs, whatever. And all of a sudden somebody's out there planning how to beat them at their own game, and boom, they appear on the market. Now all of a sudden they start stealing customers, and the other, you suddenly are playing chase when you could have been leading the pack. So there's ways to do that too. So that's basically what I've got outlined for right now. Now, is that all of it? No, the way these courses are going to work is if you sign up for like one of these courses and you give me any feedback, or I just realize, oh, I should have included this, I'm going to go in there and put it in there. So these courses are flexible. I can add to them, adapt at any time. And that's where the community feedback is going to be good. If you come in there and go, hey, I took your course and I went through this and that, but I didn't see anything about such and such. If I realize, oh, that should be in there, then I'm going to go back and put it in. Let's see. I got some other. Here's an example of, there's a lot right there that some of you might only want to take one of those course lessons, say one chapter. Let's just say, like I said, on the drywall texture masterclass, I'm actually going to have a couple versions of that. I'll have a simple texture class, And that's for those of you that just do a little bit of it. And then if you do a lot, you'll want to take the master class with everything in it. That could be a standalone. If you didn't want to take the whole course here, you can come in and just purchase that. So like there's going to be the drywall texture for beginners, drywall texture masterclass, how to identify many sprayed and hand applied textures. These will all be individual courses and you can take one or several. It's up to you. That gives you more flexibility if you don't want to take the whole course over here. So these are standalone courses, how to match and blend any type of drywall texture, how to apply orange peel, how to apply knockdown, how to bid drywall repair jobs. So see, I can break out a lot of what's in the big course and make it little individual courses. So some of you just need to solve a problem. You got a question about it. You want to learn how to bid $1 million jobs, for example. That'll be a course. How to do simple drywall repairs, how to do advanced drywall repairs, how to start the business, the contracting business, grow it. I'm also going to do a whole course on the importance of a good contract, which that'll be over in the mastering the art of drywall 2. I found contracts to be practically life-saving. Almost every time I've been burned in this business, and you will get burned if you're a tradesman, it's been because I didn't have a contract. I got lazy, or in the beginning, I used to not have contracts. And after I had to spend a whole weekend, 2 days working on a job for free because of a dispute in what I said versus what he thought I said or told me I said. I know he knew I didn't say this. I'll tell you what it was. It was BS. He was trying to take advantage of me, but we were hired to go in and put an overlay of sheetrock on all the paneling in this big chalet style home. And it had tongue and groove ceiling, rough sawn cedar tongue and groove ceiling. And I told him when we butt the drywall up to it, there will be up to a 1/4 inch gap and you will need to trim it with 1/4 round. If it's over a 1/4 of an inch, I'll fix it. So when we got all done and we were cleaning up, he said, "What about that gap?" And I said, "I told you that it'd be up to a 1/4 inch. No, you said there would be an even 1/4 inch everywhere." We argued about that for like 20 minutes. I didn't have a contract. He won. So I came back on a Monday. It was like a Friday. I came back on a Monday. He had moved into the house. So now I had to work with stuff piled up 4 feet deep and only about 2 feet away from the wall. So my ladders were having to stand up really straight, and I was getting mud on the rough sawn cedar because you couldn't hardly mask it off. It was a nightmare. And all because I didn't have a contract. Contracts have saved me a number of times. Another short example is I was on a job. The customer said, "Hey, I need you to have this done this Saturday. Can you have it?" And I said, "No, I agreed to have it done by next Tuesday or Wednesday." "Oh, no, you said Saturday." I pulled out the contract, sent him a copy of it. It said, "We will finish roughly next Tuesday or Wednesday." He shut up. It stops the arguments. It creates better customer relations. And I'm going to give you a copy of my contract to work from and show you things like that. Also, I am going to put discount codes in the description. If you just popped in and didn't hear in the beginning, I'm going to give $300 off if you join at the level 3 membership. Only 4 of those. So the first 4 of you that join will get that $300 off. But these all expire by December 24th. So Christmas Eve. On level 2, you can get $100 off your membership. Level 3, you can get $30 off. And I may add some more in there as I come up with them. Yeah, that can be one of the toughest parts about being in the trades is you got to learn how to deal with people. And like I say, one of the best ways is to have everything in writing. I think I can show you a copy of my contract. Yeah. I just got to share a different screen. So just give me a minute. I've refined this contract a number of times because over the years, I kept learning from mistakes basically. And I'd go, oh, okay, next time I'm going to have this in my contract. And even things like when the draws are scheduled, if I even have a thing in there that says, if I show up to bid your or work on your job and it's not ready more than once, there's a $200 or $300 per day charge. And that basically made them make sure they're ready. Otherwise, people will sometimes tell you, show up next Friday, and you show up and they go, oh man, I forgot to tell you, we didn't get ready. It's not going to be till Monday, or they don't even show up to let you in. If you have that little clause in there, they make sure to show up. I also explained to you why I think having a deposit is a really good idea. I know there's a lot of debate about that. I found that it solves a lot of things. So let me pull this page up here and we'll share this screen window there and add it to the stage there. So that's my old contract, and I'm going to make this like a template. And I don't know if you, let me see if I can make it a little bigger. So I talk about, am I going to mask it off? Because sometimes you don't need to mask. If you show up to a job that's really crude, the wooden floors, they ripped up the flooring, the walls are going to get painted. Maybe you don't need to mask, but if you don't say that and you show up and they get angry, you've got a problem there. So you want to make sure you just kind of cover everything. How many cracks on day 2, what I do, the time to complete the work with no changes or unforeseen delays. I put in there when we can start. And I started on time 99% of the time. If I had to work till midnight on the previous job to make sure I was going to get there, I believe it matters. People appreciate it, and you'll get referrals and repeat customers that way. I talked about blending the paint and how it doesn't always blend perfectly, so that they don't expect it to always blend perfectly. So anyway, that's one of the courses I'm going to do is and yeah, those, what you're seeing mostly is shorts videos though, because I just, like I say, it takes about 6 to 8 hours to edit a video. And I work 7 days a week right now. I take off like 1 day a month because this last year we got hit with about $25,000 worth of debt that we didn't see coming, partly from my wife's daughter. She dumped a $5,000 thing on us. My wife's car quit that cost $3,500, just kept adding up and adding up. So we're really deep in debt because of a lot of that. And because I can't do drywall, I just try and I can't. I can only work 3 to 4 hours a day. I went to do a job for a friend the other day. I've done a lot of work for him. He called me and said, hey, his drywaller blew him off. He's got to have this job done by Sunday. This is on a Saturday. It's like, can you go do it? I'm like, sure, I'll go do it. Well, normally I figured that would have been about a 4 to 5 hour job. It was around a fireplace, all new drywall, and in a laundry room, one wall. And it was skip trowel. So I normally could do that in 1 day in 4 to 6 hours tops. I worked on it for about 4 hours and I crashed. I just crashed so hard I could not finish it. And all I needed was another hour. So I came back the next day and finished it. I can't do that to customers. And I just can't make money like that. So plus my shoulder is so bad. That's who I was seeing today was the physical therapist. They gave me some stuff to do, and they may end up having to give me a shot, steroids or something. They also may have to burn the nerves in my back because that's probably what's causing my severe restless legs. So between the fact that during the week, I can't breathe right now either. I need to use an inhaler. I've had to start doing that. I just can't do drywall anymore. Yeah, I've done a lot of hanging. I plan to do a whole bunch of classes on that too. But the way my channel started out, I started showing the finishing. So my channel tends to focus kind of more on repairs because I'm one of the few guys in the country that has done 20 years of nothing but drywall repairs and about 20 years of new construction. And so I knew that I had a lot of cool tips, tricks, and knowledge about drywall repairs that a lot of guys don't because they just hadn't done it that much. And I'm one to experiment with everything. If I think there's a better way, I'm going to try it. And I learn from my mistakes. If I make a mistake, I try to find a much better way. So I'm always experimenting. So I decided to focus on the mudding and repair side. But yeah, in the beginning, the way my dad did it is we would go in and do everything. We did the hang, tape, finish, texture, all the way through it. We even stocked the rock for a while. And that, if you have never stocked drywall, it's really hard work. So I'm glad he quit. He was trying to save money. But excuse me. At one time, my dad had like 50 employees. He did a lot of the work in Vail, all the condos and that. And then he decided to downsize, and it became just me and him. And sometime he'd hire out another crew. But I've got a lot of tips on that. I'm going to probably go talk to some other drywallers too and refresh my knowledge. I haven't done new hanging in a while, but there is a lot of stuff I can teach about cutting drywall for, say, cathedral ceilings and how to measure properly and all this stuff. I even, here's an example. Probably a lot of people don't do it this way that hang drywall. I'm going to tell you a little trick my dad taught me. My dad, like I said, was into getting things done as fast as possible. One of his tricks was, if you're measuring out a 12-foot sheet and you only need, say, 112 inches, we didn't put our tape measure on the end and drag it all the way out 112 inches. We would go, let's see if I can still do it, 32 inches from the other end. And we could do it to where they could call out let's say 116.4. We did everything in eighths, by the way. So 4 would be 4/8. And the reason for that is because 3/4 and 1/4 sound the same in a noisy room, but 6/8 and 3/8 don't sound at all. So 1, 2, 3, 4, all those numbers don't sound alike, but the quarters and the eighths do if you're using a combination of those. So we used all eighths. So if you did 126.4, I think that would be 17.4 off. We just learned how to do the math in our head really quick. And then all you had to do was go over and like this on the end instead of pull over. So there's a lot of tips and tricks like that I'm going to pass on to guys when I do put those out. Yeah, drywall's an art. It's a different art. It's kind of like more like learning how to do Jenga, or what am I trying to think of? A puzzle, basically. Whereas mudding is more like trying to understand how Bob Ross paints a painting. They're a little different, but it's a skill. And I see a lot of people trying to do their own drywall hanging and make a lot of mistakes on that too, because they figure the taper will get it. That should be the saying on my new sweatshirts. That was our old saying. Taper will get it. And we were the taper. So yeah, now they hang 16 footers and maybe even bigger. But when I started out, it was all 12 footers. And when I was like 13 or so, my dad took me onto a job to hang a ceiling with him. We just called it the lid. And because his helper didn't show up or something. And I'm going to tell you, when you're 12 or 13 years old, holding a 12-foot sheet of rock up over your head on the ceiling, it was heavy. And I grew up on a small farm. I used to buck bales of hay that weighed 70 pounds and all that, but it still was heavy for a 12-year-old. And yeah, I've been shaving my head lately, in case you don't know. And if you can see on the video, you can kind of see it. I've got a ridge right down the middle of my head. That's from hanging drywall on your head too many times. It literally formed a like a callus down the center of my head. Yeah, and another thing I'm talking about, like with hanging, is why we hang horizontally mostly, and why you want to try and hang the biggest sheets you can. So many novices go right for the 8-footers, and I get it. Sometimes it's the way to go, but I'll explain why you might want to consider 12-footers if you can. Any other questions? Let's see. Well, what I'd say, Bill, there's ways to make donations, but the best way would be go onto my Drywall Academy and purchase, one of my courses or something. But if you go to, let's see, well, we got like the super chat. You can make a super chat donation to say thanks for the content. But we also have there. Yeah, if you go to my website at thatkiltedguy.com, I do have people fairly often wanting to send us something. We were sent $150 the other day because I help you guys save a lot of money. And if you want to say thanks with a tip, a donation, you can do it by some of them avenues on my website. Or what I prefer is you just buy something that's useful to you. I have an online store where I've got ebooks and different things you can purchase on there. I like it better that way because you get something out of it. I know a lot of you are basically giving me a donation for training, and that works too. So there's PayPal on there, there's Venmo, Cash App on my website. And I do appreciate it because, like I said, we are struggling. And if I could just work and be sharp, I could get this thing going really quick. But I literally screws things up so much on my computer. I spend half my time fixing it, or I sit here and I just can't concentrate. I got that terrible brain fog. And so I try and live on energy drinks because without it, I don't get anything done. I don't like them, but I only drink like one a day. I've only had half of that one. So I'm trying to limit it, but sometimes it's the only thing I can do to get by. Oh, let's see. Get back to the comments here. The old Durban. Durban still exists. Do you mean something even older than what's out there right now? And yeah, I kind of call it old too. I think Durban is old school. It's a great product. There's no doubt. And sometimes I still want to use it. Yeah, Durban is like sanding concrete. That's why I don't use it much. You use it if you really want the toughest mud you can get. But if you think you might have to sand it, you can sand the edges, but to sand the rest of it, even the easy sand, for those of you that don't know, easy sand is not easy sand. And we're talking about hot mud here, which is fast setting joint compound. And I'm going to teach all that again, cover all that kind of stuff on the courses, because if you don't know what you're doing, you don't want to mess with Durabon, because if it bites you, it's going to be a pain to get it back off. I have skim coated some popcorn ceilings with the easy sand, thinking it might be better. And honestly, I didn't feel like it was, but it was a whole lot harder to sand. And when you skim coat popcorn, you're going to get it a little bit rough. So you got to sand it, a lot of lap marks, and it was so much harder. But yeah, for things like pre-filled, Durabond is great if you can get it on flat and smooth without leaving any kind of build, or if it's going to sag and you got to sand that back off. You don't want to have to do that, but you can. Yeah, I've never messed with Structilite. I've heard of it because I'm not a plaster guy. I've fixed some lath and plaster, and I think I've covered that in one of my videos, but drywall holder. Yeah, the hoist thing, those are great tools. I've used them a lot when I was working by myself and didn't want to hire somebody. But it's the safest way to hang a ceiling. I've seen videos out there about putting boards up and all this. Those are dangerous ways. I don't recommend it. Just go rent one. You can usually rent one for a day for like 40 bucks or buy one for like, I think they're like $180 or something at Harbor Freight. It's been a while since I bought one. 12, 12 grit sandpaper. I do have 24 grit sandpaper if anybody needs it, but I don't have 2 sheets left. I got to order some more. That's of the 9-inch sandpaper, and it's a really good product. It's great for sanding popcorn ceilings, although it won't sand off painted popcorn ceilings. But I also used it after I scraped it to sand off all the residual carrier mud you needed to get it off. And once you break in 24 grit, it doesn't hurt your drywall paper and it lasts forever. But if you go buy it online, you got to buy like $120 worth of it. So I sell it 1 and 2 sheets at a time. Yeah, that hurts. I actually one time took my helmet and made a little flat platform to put on top so it would hold the drywall up better, because most helmets have a ridge down the middle. And if you're going to hold it up with your head like we did, it was faster to hold it up with our head. We would just literally go up we used the old school folding aluminum sawhorses, which I've still got because they're great tools. And we could just walk up it, flip it up, stick it up, put our head up, turn loose, have both hands, and start screwing. Or you have a guy on the ground tacking it real quick and you jump down and go measure the next one. So we had ways to get it done faster. No, I don't. I've wondered about it. I think you could, but I don't see the need, because easy sand is basically the same thing, although Durabond might be a little closer to it. But I think you could. They're both chemically setting. They set up with exothermic reaction. So it'd probably work if that's what you had on hand. Hmm. I've actually done a fair amount of tile work. I've got a tile saw. Um, I'm probably going to extend my teaching into further one day. I may start a whole new academy, because Drywall Academy doesn't really fit with tiling. And I'm not the greatest tile guy in the world, but I think I'm pretty good. I studied it and tried to figure out how to do it right. But I would rather go collaborate with somebody that does it for a living and teach it. But I may do one like a construction academy. But I have dabbled in a little bit of everything, because when you're in the trades, a lot of times you show up to a job. I'll give you an example. I showed up to a job to repair a ceiling from a water leak from a water heater on the 2nd floor. And they said, "Oh, we don't want to have you do it until we get that water heater replaced." I'm like, "Well, why don't I do it?" So I learned how to do it. I knew the basics, but I got it done. I went and bought the right torch, an air gap torch, and I soldered it, and I put a drain pan in and a pipe going out the side of the building, because it was a log cabin. So if it ever leaked again, it would run outside instead of into the room, and came out great. So you end up buying a lot of tools. I've showed up on jobs and they said, "Oh, we need to get all the siding done on the outside of the house before we have you come in." I went and bought a DeWalt chop saw and sided it. I know how to do most anything, so I can figure it out if I haven't done it. And sometimes I watch YouTube for some tips and tricks, and sometimes I watch YouTube videos to figure out what not to do. There's some bad YouTube videos out there. Waterproof that you stick them together. Yeah, I mostly did it the old school way of mortar. Just regular old trowel and mortar. Let's see. On the flats, okay. If you're talking about easy sand on the flats and mesh tape on the flats, I've used a lot of mesh tape, and I still hear and I see videos. Do not use mesh tape. It will fail. It will crack. I have to ask why. I've put on over 500 rolls of mesh tape and only had one job I had to go back on a year later, and it probably wasn't my fault. It was a weak point. They'd taken out part of a wall, and the owners didn't blame me. They said, there'd been some other construction or something. So one time in all that time that I've had one crack, and here's proof that mesh tape is quality. And I know if you use it right, that's the problem. So many people use it wrong. And there's more to it than what mud you use and what mesh tape. And again, I'm going to cover that in a course, but here's an example. I went up to a job way up on the mountain up here, and they had this house where the ceilings had popcorn ceiling. They wanted me to remove it, but you could visibly see cracks everywhere. And you could tell the previous drywaller had just done a crappy job, and it cracked and it came through the popcorn. It was so bad. So anyway, I removed all the popcorn. I fixed what I estimate to be about 90 feet of cracks, and I did it all with mesh tape. And I had one fail, and I knew it was going to, because I knew I made a mistake, and I'll tell you what that was. So I'm on a scaffolding, I'm rolling around. One of the secrets is to re-secure the drywall. If it cracked, it could be a lot of times because it has sagged and popped through the nails. The nails will sometimes pop right through the paper, or they just start pulling out and it's loose. So if you push up on that drywall around that crack and it moves, it needs re-screwed off. Now you would usually put about 2 on each side. I would often put 1. If it didn't move, I'd call it good. I'd put 1 every time, no matter what, whether it moved or not. If it moved, I'd put a second one, and sometime a third one, until you got it to be tight to the ceiling. Well, there was a 10-foot section or so that I just forgot to do that on my scaffold, and I got all done, and I'd mudded it, and I was cleaning up, and I went, oh crap, I forgot to put screws up there. Came back the next day, I had about 10 feet of crack, and it was right there. And that was the only thing. Now here's proof that it worked. I came back like 3 years later to fix some stuff on their walls and that, because it really had terrible drywall in this pretty nice house, and there was not one new crack from anything I'd fixed. I've had that many times. So it's all about technique, and part of it is making sure it's secure, because if you mesh tape a crack and it's not solid, it's still moving, it's going to crack. I don't care what you use. Let's see, get back to some questions. Well, I hope it comes out really good. Yeah, exothermic. Yeah, it's one of them I've known for a long time. If you take epoxy and mix 2-part epoxy, anything where 2 things come together and form a chemical reaction and it forms heat, yeah, it's an exothermic reaction. And honestly, I didn't know about the thin hot mud thing. I'll show that again. Yeah, less than 1/8 of an inch thick. But the funny part is, I always knew not to do it. And then I read about that a couple years ago, because you guys are making me do a lot of reading. When you question some of the things I say, I go and read and go, no, I was right. Or maybe I learned something. I have learned a few tips and tricks that I didn't know. And this is one about not putting it on too thin. And when I read about it and thought about it, it made sense. But my policy was always, I used regular mud on anything thin, and I only used hot mud on thicker fills. And I just felt like that was right. And apparently I just had a feeling for that, or I got lucky. But I've always done it that way. And then I read it and found out, hey, that's actually right. No tools for easy level walls using plaster. I'm not quite sure what that means, but like skim coating blades are really good for leveling out large areas. In the world of plaster, guys use Darbies, which are like a stiff board kind of thing that you can get a flat wall. If you're trying to start from new and you're doing drywall, you might want to start by checking the wall for flatness. I mentioned earlier I worked on a 28,000 square foot house, and this house had been going on for 4 years before I got there, and they just had gotten to the drywall point. The first day we showed up and we hung drywall, they told us they wanted the walls really flat, check everything. If it wasn't right, take it down, redo it, shim it, plane it, whatever we had to do. Well, two of us hung all day and we got something like 25 sheets hung, and we kind of looked at each other and went, man, we're going to get fired. You should better hang that many in a day by yourself, 12 footers at least. We used to figure about 30. And anyway, once we told the boss why, he was okay with it because they just charged him more, but he's also the guy that went under, so maybe he didn't charge enough. But they were having us check it with a level. If there was any rocking, we would either plane it, shim it, or somehow fix it there. Let's see. And you're welcome. I haven't heard of that one. Sheetrock brand elite finish joint compound. I haven't seen it anywhere. There's so many of them out there. Here's my view on the different drywall muds. I'm different than a lot of you, and this is fine. Everybody's got their feel for what feels right to them. I found that I can pick up just about any old mud and just make it work. I don't know, maybe because I've done it so long and I've used a lot of different products, but I can sometimes feel a little difference. Like regular all-purpose is stickier than +3, and it dries harder and stuff like that. But overall, I just don't complain. I use what I've got. If it ain't the greatest, I just make it work, and then I stick with what works. I don't experiment too much because I just don't find there's that much difference. But once in a while, you got to try out the new Total or the ultra lightweight. I tried that once and hated it, and some people like it. So it's another one of them artistic things. You got to use what feels right for you for tools and materials. But sometimes there's things you should not use. And yeah, there's a lot of ways to get a wall flat. It's something I think I mentioned earlier that we're hoping to buy a house, but if the house isn't the greatest, I want to remodel it and finish it. And even if it is, we may build a separate house, because we're looking at a modular up on 67 acres up on the hill here. It's the only thing we can afford like that. It has a nice shop, and I need a shop that I can put a studio in, because it takes about a minimum of 1,200 to 1,500 square foot to have a good studio for what I do. And I'm doing it in about 700 square feet or less. It's super crowded. I knocked over my camera the other day, broke a $500 lens, and I just got it back. This is the replacement lens. I got it for $300 used, but that's what having too crowded of a shop does. Plus, I can't do as good a job at teaching you guys the way I want to teach them. So if we get a place that needs fixed up, I will have my walls nice and flat. I'll probably make the butt joints, either use butt boards, which makes them recessed butt joints, or something. I don't like humped butt joints, which happens when it lands on a stud. You can also shim them to get that. So I would do some of that stuff. No, it's fine. I mean, all purpose is a great product. And again, I'm going to try and cover this kind of stuff in the course, but What I would say about all purposes, we mostly taped with it because it's got a little more adhesion. It's not really glue, I don't think, but we call it glue because it's what makes it stick. So the paper tape sticks a little better. It has a little bit better slickness when you're wiping it down, um, but it dries a little harder, so it's a little bit harder to sand. It often comes out of the bucket thinner because it's often kind of intended for taping, but you still got to thin it down more. But sometimes it's just too thin out of a box or bucket. So I like +3, but sometimes it's too soft. It is a really soft product. So I skim coat with +3, but then you just got to make sure you sand with like 220. Otherwise, you'll sand it right back off in a hurry. Um, Yep, I've done stuff like that. Got to make sure you have the right blade on your saw. Hmm. I can't remember the first lightweight mud I've used, but another thing is when I say I love +3, if I went back east and used +3, assuming they have it, I might hate it because every plant could be a little bit different in how they mix it up, and it may not feel the same somewhere else. So if some of you say, "Oh, I hate +3," there might be a reason for it. I don't automatically say, "Oh, you're full of crap." You know, everybody's got to use again what feels right to them. I just tell you what works for me, try to simplify it for you so you don't have to experiment so much. Yeah, that doesn't work for me though. You'd have to see my studio to see why. Um, I need multiple cameras. I often have to change the angle so you can see what I'm trying to demonstrate on the wall. I sometimes put a camera overhead. I have a bench. Now, eventually, this is what I want, almost what you're talking about, if I can ever afford it. So far, it's not looking so great, but um, if this academy takes off, I want to build a studio that's about 2,000 square feet, 1,500 to 2,000. I need a room that's somewhere around, 200 square feet just to store projects in. So a lot of times when I think of a video, I have to go out and pre-do stuff. Like, let's just say I had one I was going to test whether or not you really need to sand glossy paint before you put mud on it and whether it'll affect the adhesion. So I created 4 squares and taped them all off. And I did one with like raw drywall and one with glossy paint, one with glossy paint sanded, and something else. And sometimes I got to do a fair amount of prep putting mud on there. Then I had to paint some of it and then paint it again, then sand it. I need a room just to put those in while they're waiting to dry and such. I need another room to store materials, drywall mud, and all that. I need another small room to store all my camera gear because it takes quite a bit to do this. And then I want to have like 2 studios in there with permanent lighting. I prefer to just have a lot of lighting that just floods everything. I don't have to ever remove a light. So I have one or two, it might be 3 studios because one would be kind of a live stream demonstration bench. Another would be like my easel where I do spraying and repairs. And another one would be similar to that. It could be a fake room where I can do different things. So it takes a big studio to do what I do and movable cameras. I just need better tripods and not, I need more room where I don't trip over everything. Let's see. Yep, works great. And I got a lot of cameras. I have right now, I shoot with 2 of these. These are the Sony A6400. And the reason I used to, when I started out, I had a Nikon D3300. And so I bought another one. They're fairly affordable Nikons. And it was okay, but I could tell the focus sucked on those. It would literally do the hunt and peck thing of zzz, 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 zzz. And if you messed it up by moving and it started doing that, all of a sudden your video got all blurry. The color was not great. I swapped to this right in the middle of a video, and all of a sudden it was like, whoa, way better quality. This thing, you don't even hear it focus. It focuses like in a millisecond or something, and it has eye tracking. So when I'm on camera, it's following my eye. No matter where I go, I'm in focus. So it's an awesome camera, but I need an A6600 or something better because I want to shoot in 4K because it allows you to crop deeper and things like that. And if you shoot in 4K with that one, the eye focus doesn't work. I appreciate that, Bill, and thanks. I'm glad to see you stop in and chat with us in here. Hope you'll come over to the Drywall Academy. Even if you don't want to sign up for anything, take the free trial membership. You should be able to stay in there for free, and I'll try and make it so where you can chat with us in there anyway. Yeah, I know all about the manual thing and all, but autofocus works super good with these cameras. On the old school, I did everything manual. It's so much easier to leave it on the same basic settings every time, and the autofocus is just dead on. The only time it's a problem is when we do a video where we go, hey, I'm going to show you this product right here. It'll focus on that. So you got to get it in front of your, actually it'll be focused on your eye still instead of that. So you got to put this in front of your eye so that the camera will now focus on the object. That's the only time I have a problem with autofocus with this camera, because it's that good. You don't even hear it focus. It's just incredibly fast, incredibly accurate for the price. I mean, the body and camera is only like $1,400. A really good camera would be like $3,000, $5,000. Never seen that. That one I was just telling you about with the 4 squares, I lost the whole thing. That happens so much. That's why a lot of you guys don't realize how much work we put into these. When I hear a comment like, gee, you're trying to sell us on everything. You got a sponsor and you got books, and well, I can't do this for free. I spend 60, 70 hours a week working this 7 days a week right now. And some people want me to do everything for free. I do the free YouTube videos. You can watch them all you want for free, but I offer other ways for you to advance your learning through some of these other courses and that, because we spend a lot of time, and I lost that whole video because the sound quit and I didn't know it. Without sound, the video is pretty crappy. I've had a number of instances where I've lost part of a video and you don't even know it half the time because it just stops and you don't even know it. Yeah, I've been researching it quite a bit. I've been looking into special lighting, all kinds of things. And like I say, I want to have tripods on dollies and really good weighted tripods. I'd have to show you one I built out here. I think it's a good way to do it because it compacts it. I've made a stand that's this wide, so about 18 inches, and it's got a metal pole coming up from it. It holds a 24-inch monitor on it, a little 7-inch monitor, my camera, microphones, anything I want. It's got a little desk on it. It holds a lot of stuff. And the reason it doesn't tip over, I poured 3.5 inches of concrete in the base, so it doesn't tip, and it only takes up this much room on the floor. And I have 2 arms coming off of it that hold the cords that go out to my lights, because all of my lights and everything feeds to a massive like 6-way on that pole, and I can just flick a switch and everything turns off except for my lav mic switch, or these little battery operated ones. So, and everything is on a battery or a power cord, so I don't have batteries except for those 2, and those last like 8 hours a day. So it holds the cords up, goes out to the lights, It's a pretty decent setup, but yeah, I would love to. I'll try and check your channel out. I'm always up for learning and advice, and I want a really good studio the next time. Contractor did not sand, so he didn't sand the drywall and then just painted over some defects. If that's what you're saying, then yes, you can fix it. I would start. Hopefully, there's not too much buildup on it. If that's the case, I would start with scraping off the high points if you got any ridges or peaks or anything sticking out that you can scrape off. And I've showed this in some of my videos. Once it's painted, it's hard to sand. So scrape it, and sometimes just take your knife and scrape it this direction. So if this is the wall, you're scraping it like this, because that's like a cabinet scraper, and it will scrape off those raised edges. And then you just got to sand it properly so the mud will stick, wipe off the dust, and refloat it out. So most anything can be fixed. Yeah, that's why I want my studio where I literally want to walk in and just turn everything on. I use Google. Don't want to say it too loud, it might come on. I use Google to automate a lot of things, so I can walk in and I say certain things and certain lights come on and others go off. I want to be able to do that with a studio where I walk in and just say a command and everything just lights up the way I want. I don't have to move lights. I don't have to move cameras. I don't have to change the camera settings. I want every camera to have the same exact settings if that's what works. I probably would lock down the exposure, all that stuff. I get pretty good results. I have very few failures from exposure and none from autofocus. It's generally more like a battery goes dead that I didn't know about. An SD card fills up that I thought was empty. Dumb mistakes. Yeah, it depends what the imperfections are. If they're like divots, little holes, bubble type things, you can fix those pretty easy. Sounds like you should have fixed it. If it's truly like level 5 smooth, I don't think anybody can get. It depends on the surface, but you almost always have to sand, and edges will telegraph through most level 5 finishes. You have to feather them out. You also need to skim coat all of the drywall paper, because the drywall paper is woven and it's coarser and more porous, and it will show. Once you paint it, it will show up as paper, and this will show up as smooth mud. That's why there's a lot more to level 5 and smooth finish. Yeah, unfortunately, it's sad, but there's a lot of fly-by-night type drywallers out there. There's also a lot of guys and gals that think they are better at it than they are. I've hired some of them, and I'll just give you one example. I hired this kid one time for helping me do drywall repairs and skip trowel texture on the ceiling after I'd removed all the popcorn. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I got like 20 years experience. I can handle it." I could tell right off the bat when he started doing the repairs, he was probably going to get it done okay, but he was really slow. So I showed him how to do the skip trowel that I do on the ceiling, and he was struggling with it. So I put him upstairs in one bedroom, a 12 by 12 bedroom with an 8-foot ceiling, said, "You skip trowel the texture on this ceiling. I'll go downstairs." And I did the living room, the dining room, and the kitchen that had a vaulted ceiling with partial walls that you could reach over, and the furniture was all in the middle. I had to move 2 ladders and extended planks. I did that whole thing while he did the upstairs ceiling. And then he wanted me to hire him again, and he begged me and said he'd work for free. And I said, "No, you don't have to do that." I had a job where he could take a little more time. He got it done, but it took him forever. He worked all night long on one day. Then he contacted me a month later and told me I cost him his kids their Christmas because I didn't pay enough. Bottom line was he overstated his abilities and shouldn't have been doing it. That's just the truth of it. You got to get good at it and you got to get fast to make money at this. You're not going to make very much if you're slow and you struggle with it. But you do got to learn somewhere, but you got to be willing to make less sometimes. Oh, yeah, you can. It may not solve the problem. I would try getting some spackling. Normally, I don't like spackling because it's not a drywall mud, and a lot of people think it is. But spackling is basically for painting, fixing minor imperfections. Hey, Google, stop. I think I started it. And just fill in the minor stuff if you can, and then prime it, and then paint it. I'm probably going to have a whole painting class too. And again, I'll probably go get a actual painter to give me more tips and tricks than what I know. But I've painted probably 100 houses, but I'm all self-taught. So there's probably some things that I don't know that a painter could teach me. And I made a lot of mistakes and had to redo a lot of them. And one of them looked terrible. And I took me forever to fix it. And it was because I didn't know my airless paint sprayer had a filter in the gun. I hadn't used one much. I thought it just had the filter in the airless. And that filter was so clogged up, I was getting what's called tails. And they will make your job look like total crap. And it's really hard to get rid of. So there are always, and what it amounts to is you go work for another drywaller and they will make you their grunt for a few years. That's why these courses are going to teach you a lot faster, because this is the way you normally learn drywall. Is you go work for somebody, and what do? You pack the tools in, you pack the materials in, you mix up the mud, you clean up the tools. You might get to spot some nails or screws. I grew up when it was all nails, so I still call them nails. But you do all the grunt work, and you don't get to do much of the finish work because time is money. They want to make sure you didn't just come there to pick up some skills and leave or something. So me, I don't like to train somebody that's brand new to me. Wow. Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't get to do or to train a lot of people, but I mean, I've trained quite a few, but when I do train them, I don't even want to teach them the technical stuff until I'm sure they're going to stick around. And usually it takes 2 or 3 months. A lot of people will leave in a month and go, man, that's just hard, dirty work. I don't want to do it. And you spend all that time teaching them for nothing, basically. So if you go apprentice for somebody, you can expect to learn pretty slow. I did it for years before my dad even let me coat some corner bead. I would spot nails and do all that other stuff. And one of the ways I kind of advanced my own skills is my dad got hit by a pickup one time at about 10 miles an hour, 15, but it put him in the hospital. We were right in the middle of a job. We just pretty much taped it, I think. And I'd never run the automatic taping tools, at least not much. I think I'd run the bazooka a lot at that time, yeah, but not the mud boxes and that. Well, I just went in, picked them up, started using them. It came out pretty dang good because I'd been doing it long enough. But normally the guys that are the best at finishing, the recess joints, butt joints, all that, they're going to stick to doing that and make you do the simple stuff. So that's why I think this course could teach you a whole lot faster. I'm going to, number one, tell you about all the mistakes you don't want to make by teaching you the right way. I learned a lot of this by making mistakes. I'm self-taught. My dad taught me a lot, but he didn't do drywall repairs. I was actually a lot better than him, and he actually told me that because he mostly did new construction. So I just got out there and started doing it, and I realized I was making mistake, and over time I solved all those and just got better and better. Oh, shit. Yeah, I shouldn't say that out loud. I know better. Somebody said that on a video I was watching the other day, and he made my, what was it? He made ours all start doing something. I forget what it was, but I was like, dang it. You can't say that on video. I know better. Sorry about that. So anyway, that's kind of what these drywall courses are about, is to cut years off your training, teach you how to do things the right way. Doesn't mean you can't adapt and learn how to do it your own way, because sometimes there's more than one way to do this, but other times you shouldn't be doing it the other way because it's just wrong. And that's what this course is about. Anyway, what time is it? 7 o'clock. I think it's been almost 2 hours, huh? So I think I'm going to wrap up this live stream and say thanks to everybody. Be sure and check out the description down below for all the links to the courses and information on that. And as always, you can check out my website at thatkiltedguy.com. And let's see. And we have some more ebooks and things like that on my store at thatkiltedguystore.com. I'm working on getting out some merchandise, some shirts that maybe some of you might want, things like that. Anyway, let me wrap this up here and get back to here. So thank you, everybody. I hope you all have a good evening, and let me know if you have any questions about the Drywall Academy, or if there's things I can do to improve it, because that is going to be my crowning jewel, where I think I can do the most good for you guys. And anyway, I think you'll get a lot of benefit from it. So everybody have a good night, and I will see you on the next video, or in the Drywall Academy in the community room or something. Take care, everybody.